Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast. Each week, your host, Casey Hasten, Director of Recruiting at VIP, will bring you valuable insights from thought leaders, introduce you to incredible companies, and bring you tips for landing your dream job from our team of executive recruiters at VIP. And now, Casey Hasten.
Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast, a podcast devoted to adding value to your career or candidate search, brought to you by VIP. I'm your host, Casey Hasten. I'm an executive recruiter, director of recruiting with VIP, and your all-around hiring guru. And I get to have so much fun every week and bring you these fantastic guests to give you those tips and tricks to land your next job or to help build that better company culture. So today on the show, I'd like to welcome JD Gershbein, LinkedIn brand strategist and CEO of Alish Communications. JD is one of the world's first independent LinkedIn specialists. He was a key figure during the early years of LinkedIn and its ascent as the social networking site for business. Today, JD remains at the forefront of LinkedIn education and continues to support the goals of the business's intent on tapping into the full potential of the medium. And this has been a long time coming. JD, welcome to the show.
Am I in the right place? Is this Casey? Casey, are you there? Is this you?
It is. I know it's kind of strange to see me with like hair and makeup and all that, because normally you see me at the end of a long day. So,
well, thank you for having me. I guess that's podcast guest protocol. The "thank you for having me" statement has made its appearance. So now we can get down to business and have some fun chatting.
And we are going to have a blast. I just, your sense of humor and character has just always just enthralled me. But before we get started, I like to start the podcast with letting our audience know how we got connected, because I believe networking, even more than LinkedIn, is the best way to find your job. So how did we get connected?
Well, we are a result of the pandemic. As so many connections have been made since March of 2020 to where we tape today here on the 18th of August, 2021. We're 17 months into this thing, and you and I met early into it at another networking organization, a virtual meetup with a mutual colleague. And I guess the rest, as they say, is history. We became BFFs. We did the one-on-one Zoom, and we've always kind of been orbiting around each other, I think. And I think that's the value of networking in a virtual world, is you start to see people often at these regular meetups. You can gain a sense of familiarity with them. And before you know it, you're talking about guesting on each other's podcasts, joint ventures, collaboration, all that great communal type conversation.
Well, and I just want to point out real quick, because, Frank Agan gets a lot of love on this podcast from guests.
He does?
Yeah, because it's like all connections lead back to Frank, right?
Well, we'll add to that love.
Yeah, but I think it's so interesting that out of the Networking Hub, which is the virtual group that was born out of the pandemic by Frank Agan, some really good business connections have come through that. Like, you have a new podcast, right?
I do. I met the co-host of my podcast, Sia Yasatornrat, at the event as well. So Sia and I, who's a Dallas native, a neighbor of yours, a country woman of yours, she and I host a podcast called Two Deer in the Headlights. And I'm also getting ready to release a second podcast. So to your point, Casey, these virtual networking communities are a wellspring of possibility and potential when you're proactive and you follow through with them.
That is amazing. And it's so interesting because, yes, Sia's in my backyard. Now, where are you located again?
I'm in the great city of Chicago, Illinois.
That's
actually a suburb thereof.
And so interesting, had it not been for the virtual meetup, you and I may never have met.
How could this have ever happened?
That would have been a tragedy.
And the other piece to add to that would be that we're all global entities now. It doesn't matter where you work, because you can find strategic partners and alliances everywhere, and the business comes to you from all points of the globe. And I think that's the beauty. If you're in a service area, as I am, as long as you know the time zones, you can pretty much do business with anybody.
Yeah, I have problems with time zones. I'm just going to go ahead and fess up. But funny, and I just want to say this one last thing before we dig into the meat of the podcast, because I think, again, it's just neat. So, Sia, and I'm not going to, you did a great job pronouncing her last name, by the way. I'm not going to try. But Sia, yes, she lives right down the road from me, right?
Mhm.
Do you know how I met her?
I will after you tell me.
James Van Pruin from the
Okay,
Networking Hub introduced me to my
sure.
very own neighbor who lives in Florida.
Wow.
James lives in Florida. Sia lives here, and he connected us. Isn't that crazy?
That's how it works.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So, we're here today. We're going to talk about LinkedIn. That is your expertise. It has been from day one.
Mhm.
So, I know a lot of our candidates that we have, they have a LinkedIn profile, but they don't really optimize it. So, what power does LinkedIn have today, and why should business professionals focus so much on their profiles?
Let's go back to that one word, optimize, because that's kind of a term that gets thrown out there a lot. What does it truly mean? Well, you optimize anything to make something better or as good as it possibly could be. So on the one hand, we're talking about making the profile as best as it can be, to make it readable, to make it interesting, to make it uh, aligned with some kind of end game, whether it's to land new business or to land a new or a better job. And then there's optimizing the profile for search so that people can find you. So you increase your likelihood of intersecting with the right people. And for you, dear Casey, that obviously means candidates have to be able to find recruiters. Recruiters have to be able to find candidates. It's a beautiful thing when it happens. And it's a beautiful thing when service providers can find clients, when mentors can find mentees, when we can kind of build this community the right way. And that all roots through the LinkedIn profile. You cannot achieve an outcome, a goal, a vision on LinkedIn or in business without a seamless weaving in and out of LinkedIn.
I completely agree. And just from a recruiter standpoint, when I'm doing searches for candidates,
Mhm.
if a candidate, well, number one, if you don't have enough information on there, because I'm searching by keywords, if you don't have enough information on your profile, I can't find you. Number one.
Exactly. And it has become your LinkedIn profile, and by your, I mean everybody's LinkedIn profile has become the epicenter of their business universe. And it is your first point of reference when people hear of you or catch wind of you or see you on their screen at a networking event. That's where they're going first. And the goal of the profile, the overarching purpose, is to create impressions that drive business and career growth and position yourself for desired opportunity, period.
Absolutely. So to that end, I know that a lot of people are like, "Oh my gosh, it takes so much time," but really, to those who may be overwhelmed by creating a LinkedIn profile, what are the top three elements to a well-designed LinkedIn profile every member should have?
Boy, and there certainly is enough out there on the LinkedIn profile. It's just an endless array of video tutorials on YouTube and so many self-declaring experts coming out of the woodwork telling you how you should write the profile. And I should preface this by saying, Casey, that we're all works in progress, but there are best practices, and those have been shown to increase your probability of a positive result. So I would boil it down to three. I'm glad you did as well. And the first is top loading the content. And by top loading, I mean really stack that top of the page, what we would call above the fold. And that means creating a visually and lexically interesting marquee. And that marquee is that top section of the profile that encompasses the headshot, the banner, and the professional headline. So you've got these lexical and visual cues with featured posts actually right below that area, that compartment with eye-catching images. LinkedIn has become a very visual medium through the years, and we should take advantage of all it has to offer in that area. The second would be comfortable formatting. And I mean something that's easy on the eyes, where the brain doesn't have to think too hard. Uh, don't stack everything up in a huge paragraph. Have paragraph breaks. Perhaps use bullet points. I'm not a big fan of the emojis that people are using. I think it serves as a detriment. It's a little hokey in my opinion. And capitalization, use capital letters to emphasize a point. LinkedIn doesn't give us much opportunity to take advantage of fonts or bolds or italicized words. We have only caps at our disposal. And the third, I would say, is consistency of narrative. So as we're writing this content, there's two schools of thought, how we should present ourselves. Should we do it out of the first person, the I, me, my, or the third person, using third person pronouns? That's another conversation, but if you're going to do first person, stick with first person. If you're going to do third, stick with third. So there's this kind of uniformity throughout the profile. And those three, top loading the content, make it visually enticing and interesting in your use of language, comfortable formatting, make it easy on the brain and the eyes, and then this consistency of narrative where people understand and the verbiage flows.
Absolutely. And before we move to my next question, I kind of want to break that down a little bit, because one of the things that I run into a problem with is, sometimes when people change jobs, their title or their industry doesn't update up in their headline. So I can't remember if that's something you have to do manually or if that's something that automatically updates from your last. I don't think it automatically updates, but I would really encourage people to make sure that that information is correct at the top.
Absolutely. And interesting and spot on. And that is a razor sharp branding statement, that professional headline, which is a huge piece of my own workshop and training and development. It's kind of like your calling card at this point. If people are going to read anything, they're going to look at the professional headline. And what have you got there for them?
Exactly. And I think that's so important. And another thing that I would caution people on, as you're adding stuff to below the fold, like your job timeline, make sure that if you're actively applying to jobs, that your resume and your LinkedIn match.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So let's talk about the top part. What did you call that again?
Well, I call that the marquee.
The marquee.
It's
okay.
the topmost section of the profile that is designed to make an impact upon downloading.
Okay, so I'm curious. I've got a really curious question for you. So let's talk
All
about
right.
the photo for a second, okay?
Sure.
So what do you think, number one, makes a strong profile photo?
So much has been written about the profile photo, which we'll refer to as the headshot. And I firmly believe it is the gateway to your personal brand. And for folks in business, it's a piece that should remain consistent and follow us all across the internet. If it's on our website, if it's on our all the rest of our social media platforms, that photo is your statement. It's your identity. It's your marker. And on LinkedIn, it will either set you up for quality engagement or prove to be a stumbling block, preventing others from engaging with you. And unfortunately, we're a species, we're quite superficial as a species, and we place a lot of emphasis on how people look. And you've heard the term best foot forward, so this would be your best virtual foot forward. And obviously, it should be professional. Photographers have really upped their game in the last several years. The optics have been better than they ever have been. And photographers now are in the personal brand conversation. They are brand strategists as well. They want to capture the essence of their subject as just as much as you, the subject, want to look as good as you possibly can. So when you've got that good chemistry and dynamic between you and the photographer, you produce a warm, welcoming, professional expression, which I think is ideal for LinkedIn.
Well, and I love that you said that, because I'm going to tell you a little secret about recruiters. Okay? This is what everybody needs to know. Number one, yes, definitely invest in that professional headshot. I actually know of several places around Dallas where I'm at, and I'm sure they're in other cities as well, where these career transition or even career development workshops will offer free headshots. So keep an eye out for that if for some reason you can't afford to go get one right now. But if you can, that is the first and best investment that you can make in yourself, is to get that professional headshot. Second,
I'll add to that, Casey,
Yeah.
for gals out there, and I've spoken at numerous women's leadership conferences, and when I get to this topic, and I always hear a few chuckles start to build in the audience, you don't want to attract unnecessary attention to yourself, so I would advise to lay off the glam shots and keep it very professional.
Yes.
We've seen a proliferation of some very provocative, overtly sexual shots on LinkedIn, and I know for a fact that it drew the ire of many users. It's just not professional. And if you're applying for a job, especially a senior executive role, a leadership role, it behooves you to look professional, warm, welcoming, energized, but
Smiling.
smiling,
Smiling's
but
important.
smiling in the right way, of course.
Yes, exactly. And I'm so glad you said that, because that's the secret I was going to tell you. When
Mhm.
I am going through profiles on LinkedIn, and I'm going to give you an example of the worst one I ever saw first. A candidate had posted, or a person, sorry, had posted a profile pic in a bathing suit.
How about that?
I'm not calling that person, So I was just like, okay. And selfies, no, sir, no, ma'am, no selfies. Would you agree?
Agreed. Agreed. It may be a quick fix or a placeholder, but again, the time is right to invest in professional photography and portraiture. It's only going to help you.
Absolutely. It's almost just like even hiring a professional resume writer. It's only going to help you, right?
Or a LinkedIn profile writer,
There
Casey.
you go. Okay. So we talked about the headshot, but there's
Hmm.
also the banner.
Hmm.
So, what are some of the best practices when choosing a banner?
Great question. And the banner image has really come on as a key visual element of the profile. And when thoughtfully planned, it can really drive the branding. The best practice here is to make sure the image fits nicely into that tight rectangular compartment, because it's going to compete with the headshot if it doesn't. So you want the banner image to be a nice continuation, a flow left to right out of the circular headshot and into this rectangular area. LinkedIn does give you the ability to position uh, the banner vertically. You can't do it horizontally. So you have to move the image to where it captures the best interest, kind of keep it there. And what should it be? What should the subject matter be? Well, anything that makes an impact relative to the business or career goal, or as I've been seeing a lot more of, something that is of personal importance to people. It
Mm,
need not have a business connotation. It could be a sunset, a landscape, a picture of an ocean. I mean, it could be any number of things that are of importance to you. The role and the goal of the banner or the cover photo is to get you remembered so that
hmm.
people know they were on your profile. Example, my company is named Owlish Communications. I don't favor text in that area. I favor image. So I don't use my company logo. That would be redundant, I believe. I want to call attention to my brand in other ways. So I just put the face of an owl in that rectangular field, so that when it comes up on the desktop, on the laptop, or on mobile, it's the same image. It fits nicely into that rectangular area. The area of interest is very high in the left to left center of the banner, and it makes for a nice statement.
I love it. One of the things that our company does to kind of standardize it, because we are so visible on LinkedIn as recruiters, is
Mm-hmm.
we have a standard banner that we can opt to use if we want
Mm-hmm.
to. That's got our company. It doesn't have really the company logo, but it's got VIP, and then it's got our background that we use. Very theme wise throughout everything that we do on our website and everything else. And I remember the question I wanted to ask you about the profile picture.
All right.
So now, if you're using the app, you have the option to add video to your headshot. How do you feel about
Yes.
that?
It's interesting. I haven't seen too many of them. I've seen a few. Um, I think the jury's still out on it. Um, Only because what I've seen, it's very brief. It draws attention right to that headshot, but my eye is naturally drawn to the headshot.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the way that humans process information on an internet page, when that page downloads, where are we going first? You can even see it in your mind. We are habitually drawn to that upper left quadrant. So I'm looking at the headshot, and then when the video launches, it's a little jolting, to be honest. And then I have to wait for the few seconds to be up where I can go back and just look at the headshot. I think it's interesting. Um, I haven't seen anybody botch it. I think the ones I have seen have been relatively good. So I'll say that as more and more people do it, if it becomes more commonplace and expected on LinkedIn profile views, then maybe I'll add one myself. But right now, you just get my photo, a still. It says nothing.
It says everything.
I didn't animate it.
Your personality just goes boom when you see your photo.
No, stop yourself.
I think I'm gonna do it. I think I'm gonna be an early adopter.
Okay.
So we'll see. I'll let you know how it goes and if I get more clicks and
Okay.
more attention. So okay, so let's talk about the about section because again we're above the fold. This is where it's really important. What do we need to tell people in that about section?
As someone who's been around the recruiting space, I'm sorry, talent acquisition space, I know you know a little something about reviewing profiles. And for so many years, up until I want to say spring of 2020, right? Or maybe a little earlier, maybe late 2019, LinkedIn changed that section title from summary to about. And there are a couple of reasons why they did it. So a lot of folks, as you well know, Casey, they just transplant the executive summary from their resume into the summary section of the LinkedIn profile. Not because they didn't have anything to say about themselves, but that's what they thought it was. They thought LinkedIn is the online resume, which by the way, it really isn't. So they would take verbatim that text from the summary section and put it right into that summary of the profile, thinking that they had achieved the goal for that section. So when LinkedIn changed it to about, it kind of merges and blends with this movement towards storytelling. So now we're not just business people, we're not just marketers or sellers, we are storytellers. We are stewards of our own story, hence we have to find our narrative. So that about section really does kind of hone in on who we are as human beings. It forces us to tell others about ourselves. So the role, as your question leads me to state, is that it is the make or break section of the profile. That's where we convey our professional value and extol the benefits of doing business with or hiring us. And it's where your story is concentrated. It's the point at which the visitor's eye and attention is drawn to after the information uptake at the top of the page. So that's what makes it so key, Casey, is that it's literally the first piece of information that people are really going to find out about the subject of the profile after they get past the topmost.
And here's something that I'm guilty of. And I realized this the other day because I don't go to my own profile very often, right? Because when I change jobs, I'll go, but I don't do that very often. But I was a guest on a podcast the other day and they pulled my about section off LinkedIn and read it and it was wrong. It was so wrong for what I'm doing today. And I was like, I've got to go fix that. So maybe a good tip would be like, every so often, go read your about me statement and make sure nothing's changed. It's same as like when you're updating your titles and your headline.
The call is for continuous updating and upgrading of the profile. Think of your LinkedIn profile as the exhibit you are curating about yourself. If there are things about your professional life that are obsolete or services you're no longer providing or skill sets that you feel you've kind of graduated from and you're into new areas in your career development, this should be brought into the profile. This is where we curate the exhibit on ourselves, what we show people, what we telegraph to the outside world. This is where the core of learning on us is, in that about section. And if you've moved past something, if you're no longer that person, we must be reinventing, we must be reevaluating, reassessing, and most importantly, reconfiguring that profile.
Okay, I will go do that this weekend. Because I still haven't done it, even though that happened.
All right.
Note to myself, this has been good. So what process did you go through to write your about section?
Well, kind of a trick question, Casey. As you know, I'm in the field and I have a proprietary methodology for writing LinkedIn profiles. And I feel I've matured in the craft as LinkedIn has evolved. I've paced myself with the medium. I've gone through my process and I've fleshed out my own value and pieces of my own psychological narrative that is aligned with what I'm trying to accomplish the network or community I'm trying to build, the audience that I'm trying to assemble for my podcasts and my content, and the clients I wish to serve. So the current iteration of my profile is really representative of my style. I went through, again, the same work, the same assessment that I put my clients through. And I ain't easy. I ain't for the faint of heart, because I really plumb the depths of my psyche to get what you see out on that page, both for myself and my clients. So what you see there is a nice marriage between my past accomplishments, my present value, and my future vision. And the most important, the most overriding piece on the about section is to be in touch with your client pain, not to be an overt sales pitch, but to have your content really say something to what you feel your ideal clients go through. Because by now we should know, as business people, why our clients hire us and why candidates are looking to you to help them in their job search. And to do that, you have to understand their struggles and understand their goals and aspirations.
And I love what you said earlier when you were talking about the top three things, and we kind of unpacked that, but you kind of almost addressed whether it should be in first person or third person. Do you have a preference there? Because I feel like I do.
I do. I'm a third person guy all the way.
Really?
Really fascinating what you find out
No,
about people who
I
guest on your
know.
podcast.
I really thought you would be a first person guy.
I'm a third person guy, and I'll tell you why. I've worked on a lot of profiles of some very decorated executives and some senior business people and some high achievers in their field. And when they write about themselves in first person, I gotta tell you, it sounds arrogant, and they come off as very pompous and very full of themselves. And when you neutralize it out of the third person, it disarms the reader, the visitor to your page. And you tend to think that you're a little bit more on level ground. There's an art to writing about yourself in first person. But there's a real challenge in writing about yourself in third person. But third person is going to be much better salesmanship, because you can now take that step away from yourself and transmit your value in a way that, okay, it's not coming right from the source. If I were to say to you, Casey, I am a thought leader in personal branding, you would think, well, JD, we have a very inflated notion of ourselves, don't we? But if I were to say to you, I am considered in many circles as a thought leader in personal branding. You see what I've done there? I've kind of taken it down.
Yeah.
Or if I would have said something like JD is considered a thought leader in the area of personal branding, if you were reading that about me. Now, granted, many people can't, don't, or won't write about themselves in the third person. It's a huge piece of my workshop. And once people do make that separation, if they can, they kind of see themselves as their clients or employers would see them. It makes it a little easier. I favor the third person.
I am so glad I asked that question, because I had not really, I used to favor the first person.
Well, it's a great debate on LinkedIn, and there are plenty of listeners, I'm sure, who are listening and going, JD, for real? You're a third person guy?
But it makes a lot of sense. I mean, you defended the position very well. So, I'm going to think about that, really. I may go back and redo mine, maybe.
Out of all the clients I've ever written LinkedIn profiles for, I did have one person, this was years ago, and he questioned it. In fact, I now have it on my service agreements, where people have to understand the creative aspect of what I do and understand that I do write in the third person, because I feel that brings out the stylistic elements and the storytelling much better. So it came back to him. He got his draft. He looked at me. We got on the phone. He said, JD, I mean, it's great, but I just need it in first person. I really am kind of uncomfortable with this in the third person. And I said, okay. So what I did was I changed all of the third person pronouns to first person. So I put in an I put in his me, I put in his my, and he got it back. And he said, boy, you're right. I'm a real tool in this thing. I'm arrogant. I sound like I can part the Red Sea here. You're right. I sound like a bloviating overachiever here. So we put it back to third person, and he's been completely comfortable with it ever since.
I love it. I love it. So, a little off topic, let's talk about hashtags for a second. I like to hashtag everything,
Mhm.
but is there really value there? And is there like a set amount where it's too much or not enough?
I believe so. Hashtags are a borrow from the Twitter world, as we know. There are many people who are very averse to hashtags. They don't like the symbol. It creates a dissonant effect in their brains, or they think it's too closely associated with Twitter or the Instagram world. But on LinkedIn, they're like little internal search engines, and it gives us a little ability to control our content. And ideally, we can organize content on LinkedIn or any other social media platform. If you're developing thought leadership and you want to be present in certain areas where you know people are getting their content, hashtag content carries with it the potential for greater exposure and an increased likelihood of intersecting with the people who want that content. So I hashtag, believe the best practice has fallen into the 3 hashtags are enough type of philosophy. There are people who hashtag the heck out of their posts. I mean, 15,
It's like
20,
all
25
blue.
hashtags. It's like, and LinkedIn recognizes that as kind of gaming the system. So they will basically kill you in their algorithm.
Mm.
So I have heard, and from these folks, I take it as gospel, 3 hashtags is plenty. And I also recently heard, and by recent I mean within the past, say, month of our taping, that hashtags are best serving the post when they're at the end of the post, grouped together, as opposed to using hashtags as a word in your post, in your text of your post. Now, I can't corroborate that or verify it, but I'm a 3 hashtag guy. For a while, I was going 5 or 6, and realized that, okay, I'll listen to the people who understand coding and technology better than I do, and went down to 3. So I do 3 hashtags per post.
That's that's really good to know. And by accident, I've already been doing that. I don't ever include hashtags in the middle of my post just because I think it's
Mhm.
distracting, but I
It
always put
is,
them down at the bottom, separated from the paragraph,
Mhm.
all together. So
As we should.
that was an accident, but that's what I do.
Hashtaggery at its finest.
Okay, so I noticed that you have like hundreds of endorsements on LinkedIn for everything from, let's see, what did I have? Social media marketing, blogging, business development. How can endorsements help to optimize a candidate's LinkedIn? And how do you ask for them?
Well, to go there, we have to go where we've been, and that is a little concise history of the LinkedIn endorsement. And for our discussion, I will lead into another area of testimonial, the LinkedIn written recommendation, because the 2 phases are related. When LinkedIn introduced endorsements back on September 24th, 2012, and I'm not reading that. I'm sure you're very impressed with the fact that I've been able to recall that date, but I can't think of any other piece of LinkedIn that was met with more consternation and confusion than when the company introduced endorsements to its platform. Because at the time, people thought this was a superficial or artificial valuation of themselves. And the way that LinkedIn was prompting you to endorse your connections was a little something out of the ordinary. Never been seen before on LinkedIn, where they were asking you, beckoning you, imploring you to endorse your colleagues, clients, or fellow workers. And it was met with a lot of confusion and ambiguity. And my inbox blew up, Casey. I was fielding questions left and right. What are endorsements? Should I be doing them? What's their importance? Is there any value to them? And what we've learned 9 years later is that they do have implications in search. Everything that LinkedIn does, for the most part, is set up to help recruiters find talent. You
Mm-hmm.
can hopefully attest to that. So endorsements, which remain uh, artificial uh, little validations of people's abilities, now have had that second piece where you now have to uh, acknowledge the fact that you know this person possesses that skill or that commands that area of expertise. So there's a secondary step now in getting the endorsement on LinkedIn. But there was a while there where we were just accruing these ad nauseum, and it became a bit of a popularity contest where people would just solicit endorsements in return for endorsements. I mean, come on, it's just a tally, folks. I mean, but they do have implications in search, and they will optimize on the search engines internally on LinkedIn. The weighted value of the LinkedIn written recommendation, I think, carries more value because recruiters are spending a lot more time on profiles now, Casey, and they are taking the time to scroll down the belly of the page where the written recommendations are. I personally feel they should be moved up a little bit. I do envision LinkedIn bringing written recommendations back into prominence, but endorsements are valid to the point where they do aid in search. They do give people a kind of a surmise of who you are in business and what you're capable of doing. But for a while there, I kind of let them go. They built, they accrued. I didn't do anything to really draw attention to them. They kind of populated naturally. I'm more concerned with written recommendations.
You know what? And I agree with you there. I think written recommendations are huge.
Mm-hmm.
And but I think it's really interesting when you see someone that has received a lot of written recommendations but not given any or as many. So I think that's a real fine line you have to walk there. Is if you're going to ask for those recommendations, then you need to be willing to give them as well.
You are so right. And even in those instances where there's no recommendable basis, you can always give someone a character recommendation. And that example you cited, I'm very, very close. People have been very, very kind to me through the years. They've written me some lovely recommendations. And I'm of that ilk where if I get one, I'm going to give one. And in many cases, if I want one, I'm going to give one first.
Yeah.
And even though I may not have been a end user of the product or the service, I'm going to write someone based on their honesty, their integrity, their core values that I know they have, and why I think they would be a good fit for what they do. I believe in lifting people's spirits, and I believe in the power of testimonials.
I think that's beautiful. I don't know if you're going to believe this or not, but we are almost out of time.
Hard to believe.
It has just flown by. So I want to get to our VIP questions because nobody gets out of here without answering those. Don't you hang up.
Boy. Well, look, I take these questions very seriously.
Okay, so the next one I really love. It's probably my favorite question. I like all of them, but this one's my favorite one.
Okay.
What is one thing you do each morning to set your day up for success?
A couple of things, but the one thing that I do before anything else is right out of the chute, I do exercise. And the particular exercise I really like are Russian twists. Do you know what the Russian twist is?
I have no idea. Are you going to show us?
Okay, so the Russian twist is pretend I'm holding like a 30-pound dumbbell. I have a full workout area in my home in the basement in the man cave. So the Russian twist is where you hold the weight up literally to your chest and you're rotating side to side. And it really stretches you out after a night of sleep. It really gets the circulation pumping. And then I write. I'm probably going at about anywhere between 1,000 and 2,000 words of just writing. Sometimes just put up an empty Word doc, and whatever my mind is occupied with comes out on that Word doc. And often it's business. Sometimes it's ideas. Sometimes it's just something that needs escape.
I love that. I love that. Those are great habits to be part of your morning ritual, of course. Okay, so my final question. If your life's work was being summarized in a news article, what would the headline be?
We'll do this in headline form. Lifelong learner transforms himself and others through LinkedIn.
Dun, dun, dun. I love it. How do people find you? I know there's going to be some people that are going to want to learn more about this course that you have.
Well, I'm going to be doing all sorts of things coming up as we move back into the virtual world come fall, winter 2021, as we're taping this. Boy, I'll tell you, what a disappointing turn of events regarding the pandemic, huh? Just when we thought there was light at the end of the tunnel.
I know.
And now it's going to be back into virtual learning. But I'm always available, not just as an educator and service provider, but just as a conversationalist. I'm reachable on LinkedIn. You can find me under JD, no periods. And of course, my last name is in there too. I think LinkedIn requires the last name be in the last name field. And you can find me there, LinkedIn. You can connect with me on all social media platforms, and you can visit me at jdgershpine.com.
Awesome. Awesome. This has been an absolute blast. I know our fellow hubsters are going to be so jealous that we got to spend this time together. So,
are you saying that because I'm here, Casey, or did you really have fun with me today?
I really had fun with you today.
All right. Don't sugarcoat anything.
I'll tell Sia all about it when we go have lunch next week. So,
there you go.
Well,
And
JD,
thank you for having me. I have to say, after I've known you for these many months, and it's a pleasure to be here with you today. And I got to believe we created some value, because I know your commitment to what you do. I know you are a passionate talent acquisition specialist and derive a great deal of satisfaction from working with your clients and placing them in positions they love. So hopefully your clients got a lot of value out of today's talk.
I know they did. I felt very certain. So, JD, I just have one more thing to say to you.
Okay.
You are a VIP.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap for today. Join us next week here on the We Are VIP podcast. We'd love to know how we can help you be a VIP. To find out more, log on to wearevip.com.